Greetings! Today will be looking at TopDesk, which is an ITSM system that works really well with Zervicepoint. They have a ton of stuff besides ticket handling, of course, like you see here. We have some ticket handling, we have comments here, a contact card for the caller or requester. We can link to different assets, so they have asset management as well. We can link to a person. You can add stuff like cost centers and have it like a CMDB to keep track of your locations. And this is the operator view. So you have a different view for the end users, which reminds us more of a self-service portal. And typically they seem to have like hardware orders and requests and stuff like that exposed to the end users. And I guess you can fit pretty much anything in there. You have knowledge management as well, swifting over quickly to the API page and looking at what kind of endpoints they have here. And this isn't really endpoints, this is more like modules. So we have a knowledge-based API, and you have one that supports graph query language, and then you have the general API where you can query persons and locations and stuff like that. Services, you have change management where you can request changes and work with actions and stuff on the changes as well. Reservations, asset management, as I mentioned, and tons of other stuff as well. And what I thought was pretty cool with TopDesk is as well that you see that it seems like you can extend all the entities pretty freely. So you can add like your own templates that defines a group of assets and add custom fields to them and stuff like that as well. So it's a one-stop shop for ITSM, it seems like. But when you add Zervicepoint to it as well, you get a really good possibility for automation that TopDesk lacks a bit, like on-premise automation and stuff like that as well. So I'm gonna explore this API here today, a short introduction to that, because we have already worked with this TopDesk system with customers as well. So we can look at the API, but first you need to generate an API key. And how do you do that? Well, you sign in as an operator. You click on the menu here, you go to your settings and you choose add here, and I fill in an application name, and that will become a username basically. And when I click create here, if I write Erik test and I click create, I get this password close, and I will actually remove that one because I already prepared one here, so I delete that one. And then we jump over to PowerShell because we want to test the API. Let's go to the general API first, and we'll do a test. Perhaps we should get the person. There's so many queries or actions you can perform here. You have incident here, and you see you have a bunch of different incident actions you can take regarding incident. General, SLAs, operators. Let's go now to person, get the person by ID. Okay, so here if you already have an ID, you can call this endpoint avatar list of persons. Here you have a list of person, and this is actually moved to supporting files API, so I'm going to go over there, and they have a nice Swagger UI documentation of their supporting files API. Okay, so we have a person's endpoint here, and we have different kind of parameters they take. We can send in a query. Can we query by name perhaps? Fields, page I start. Here we have the example data. Okay, let's test this out. I prepared some code here. So you get this code when you generate it in the UI. And you wrote an application name, so I'm going to put that before this colon. And then I'm going to encode it as put it in default encoding first and then convert it to base 64. And then we get something like this. And this is the actual key that we will be sending in our requests. So here I have a secret, and I'm putting it in a header like this. And then I should just be able to invoke a REST method towards that. Method get URI. Well, let's go with header first. Header. And then URI. I think I have a URI here. Yeah, I can do it this way. And I need to have the complete URI here. Let's put mat. And that should be it, but we still need the whole URI, and I have it in a different file here. So there we go. Let's try it out. I haven't actually tested it yet. And I see some red text. Unauthorized. Okay, so I need to create a new secret there. Maybe fast forward this part, Johan, or cut it completely. And we're back. And so I had to regenerate the key and a new application name and do this again. And then I ran my REST method here, and I got one hit on my person lookup. Okay, if we're gonna take a quick look at that result. We can look in REST results. We get an ID and a name of the person we search for. And well, let's have a look here. What more can we do? As I said, we have tons of endpoints here. So I think we should be able to create an operator change, because I already prepared that actually. But so we will be having a quick look at the change management API. We click in there. And we can just type operator change, and here's all the different actions we can take regarding operator changes. Create a new change for an operator on the post. Okay. Minimal operator change. Okay. So we have some required fields here. The ID of the requester is required. Template, you don't really need a template. Yeah, TopDesk supports template as well, so you can create the template operator change, and then you can just put in the requester, and some of the fields that you have from the template will be pre-filled. So makes it easier if you want to automate like a computer order and you want to have it coded in a specific way. You can just call the template when you do this and fill out the blanks with requester and stuff like that. A brief description is not required. Okay, I thought that actually. So we already prepared a function here called new operator change, which will create a new change taking the parameters you send into it, requester ID, template number, because TopDesk supports template for operators for operator changes. So you can predefine a template with some coding, like what kind of let's say it's a computer order, and you can have a specific template for that with statuses and workflows and escalation parts and stuff like that. And request text is more the verbose body of the change request. And the brief description is like the subject. So what we're doing here is basically we create a hash table and we map all of these parameters into the hash table, and then we pipe the whole hash table to remove pf null or empty hash property. And what this does is that it, for instance, if request text here is empty, because it's a non-mandatory parameter, we will actually, this commandlet will remove that row entirely. So it's a very good commandlet to use whenever you're building JSON bodies for REST API calls. And then we take the whole body and we convert it into JSON, because that's what the API takes. And we send in a REST method with post towards this API or this URI. Send in the body, and we say the content type needs to support charset UTF-8 for Swedish characters. And once we get the results, we print it back to Zervicepoint. And you remember, if you want to return data to Zervicepoint within your activities, you return a hash table. So if I have a variable called ID in Zervicepoint, it will take the ID of the REST method of the call and put it back into that variable. So we can work with that variable afterwards, because the next thing we want to do was we want to take the operator change ID into this activity. So we take that number, that ID, to manipulate the operator change in the next step in our workflow. So if we try this out in the real practical world, we have this form here, and we search directly towards TopDesk here, actually, with drop-downs we created around the code that we just wrote. And I'm just gonna select a requester and a receiver, pick a computer model in this case. I fire off this, and if I look on the workflow in this order, we start out by calling the operator change activity we just created. We send in some values here from the selected requester from the drop down, and we say computer order in Swedish, datumställning. Send in a template number and a request text, and afterwards this will return an ID of this operator change, and we throw in that as a parameter or argument on the following activity that links the receiver to this operator change. So if I check my order now, I will be typing out the friendly number of this newly created operator change as well. I go in here and I do search, and I think I will do a search on changes. Click on my number here, and we can see the operator change that we just requested. We can also see the link here. We'll link the person, in this case this dude, to our operator change. So everything seems to work, and it also utilizes a template. So to sum up, there's tons of things you can do in the TopDesk API, and you can use it together with Zervicepoint quite easily, because they have such a well-documented API as well. So thanks for this time, and tune in a couple of weeks, and we'll be looking at something completely else probably. Bye bye.